In fiction, it's a lot easier to understand someone. There's a narrator explaining things. You'll have thought bubbles of telling you what's going on. No filter, no mask. We, the reader, have many means to be assured that what we read and see reflects the character's genuine thoughts. What we see and hear is what's going on. These are these reasons for these characters' actions, and those, say, thought bubbles explain to us here is their point of view on things. Consistency is implied, usually. Sometimes writers forget or change their minds, or if it's a twist, but at least those are on purpose, whether we like them or not. The character is typically only going to get so deep, but when we see real people act differently in different situations, or act differently in the same situation, remember, yeah, fiction is less complicated than reality. All those neurons and all those memories is the basis of our actions. It's just a lot. Still, even a character whose entirety is one story can have a particularly deep journey. That character doesn't need to become so three dimensional that they're a real boy to feel like they're spilling their soul through the dialogue and actions of their limited story. Have you ever gone through a character's story and thought, yeah, this is shit, ain't it? Whether you were just confused in how your buddies just seeing anything in a character or an arc, or you felt like, no, you're picking up what they're putting down and you're picking up shit, and now you gotta wash your hands since she's at the bathroom door. You can't touch that, but you have shit on your hands. If that last question sounds like it's going somewhere, that's because, yes, it is you who clicked on a video. The word I is in the title. It's about me. It's my video, and I get to choose the framing. What? I've had a habit of confidence that I've figured out whether a story is objectively good or bad, not even just not for me. If I think about something, then it must be the objective truth of the thing. Yeah? I think, therefore, I'm right. And sometimes you've got a story that just communicates its themes poorly, and I can make an objective analysis for why it's all the worse for it. But if someone likes it anyways, then, eh? The objective shortcomings in a narrative are why I don't like it, but that someone took away something from that art, which is the point. So, it's weird. I haven't quite figured it all out yet. One story I assured myself was a bad tale was in Hunt. No, sorry, not Hunter x Hunter yet. From doing the video essay cliche of going back in time. It gets there. Don't worry. Back in university, a friend and I went through Persona 4 Golden. Real fun game, uses dungeon crawling mechanics and the associated repetitive grind. The Persona series posits, check it the fuck out. What if, when you're not in the dungeon, there's a friendship simulator that lets you speed up the leveling process in the dungeon? Real neat way to lessen the grind while tying in a message of leaning on others that the game teaches. Trying to handle it all alone makes a dungeon both in game and a dungeon of life way more difficult. There was a social link that I wasn't getting. For context, a social link is basically a self contained personal story within a larger game story of someone representing one of the major cards of the Tarot deck, each with their own common themes. Chariot stories tell a tale about you controlling ambition and not the other way around. Death stories about processing the uncontrollable, whether it be physical death, death of a friendship, death of a career, the change bored out of those befores and after. I just didn't get this one social link, which, hey, is its own lesson. If you don't understand every single little thing of every line, character, and world, that doesn't mean your time and analysis is invalid, let alone yourself. Maybe it's enough fiction and real to interact with others, reckon, and say, I don't entirely get it, man. But I get that this is a lot for you, which I think matters so much now. At that time, though, the social link I grappled with represents the Death Arcana, one of the most misunderstood arcanas. Who did I misunderstand that story? I went over the 10 segmented sequences of this person's story and thought, dude, you're being so dumb about this. This subjectively isn't your fault, and this problem isn't real. So why are you moping? But that was the thing I missed. The character had intense pain from loss, an intense coping mechanism where they took responsibility for something that, again, wasn't their fault. Side note, wouldn't you believe, years later, I found out some of my 3 a.m. thoughts are from a sense of responsibility, born out of a few rough moments of my own. That's life for you. It took a while longer to be able to do 2 things. One, understand what someone is going through and not think of them as lesser when they aren't making the right choices, rather the easy choices. 2, to not understand what they're going through and still be able to empathize at the same time. Hey, look, even back then I was able to empathize with folk, but I had a lot more blind spots than I thought I did at the time. I'm a responsible guy, so if I don't understand why this person is grieving this way, going through that thing this way, it must be because they're doing something wrong. This realization and change didn't start overnight, nor from one single event. I don't think that's ever the case. One night, when I was watching Hunter x Hunter, specifically the Chimera Ant arc, I noticed I was paying more attention and being more present with what was on the screen, my judgments aside. There were moments I could intellectually understand and break down piece by piece. Then there were moments that I didn't understand every single last detail, and I was content with that. I didn't have to understand the mood on an intellectual level for it to be valid. It was enough to know that what was being dished out was the human experience. I think this is one of those things where some days we practice that patience better than others, and hopefully that trending arrow is upwards. The proper response to trauma is not easy at all, and it doesn't make someone lesser when you don't make that right choice. Grappling with loss, dealing with broken promises, how humans are supposed to act, being shattered, longing, balancing principles and convictions, all of these things I'm capturing with the English language. And other things I can't quite describe that I don't totally get. These moments are just as valid as all the others, just as important, just as human. I was already enjoying Hunter x Hunter for the beginning. The Chimera Ant arc starts at episode 76, which is a lot of episodes. That's a lot of episodes that I was liking. It was just so much more for me to enjoy up to that point. The power system utilizing life energy through techniques called Nan was clearly defined and balanced. Awesome. Great. The visual world blends the beauty that you see in the natural world with practical and non-practical elements that feel emotionally lived in. It's a beautiful tapestry where an island shaped like a whale has modern technology, electricity, power lines, video game consoles, computers with internet. People on that island go to an electronics store. That electronics store gets supplied by a literal sailboat, pulling it to the shore where that equipment gets unpacked by strong dock boys, modern and antiquated, all, again, lived. Another reason why I like it? I don't know, sail ships are cool, I guess. So much about the world, man. York New City, you can guess what that's based on, is described as a massive city with so many moving parts, the sketchy power areas, the shop districts, entertainment districts, some cute cafes, a corrupt mayor bought out by the powers that be, just like New York City. I forgot to mention the mafia. Just like New York City. It's the mafia part is that's where things start to go down. The Phantom Troop starts to make their move in the annual Southern Peace Auction, where the rarest items get traded all willy-nilly. The Phantom Troop get involved because, well, it turns out doing crimes costs money, and they end up clashing with the protagonist, mainly because of Kurapika, but Gilwa and Gon get into the mix as well. Kurapika gets into the mix because one of these rare items is an eye of one of his clansfolk. I guess he doesn't like the body parts of his people being treated like pieces of jewelry? Killer was a tough kid, trained by tough assassins in the woods who walk uphill in the snow 5 miles each way for his morning cool guy underwater fall training, who is here because Gon wants to help Kurapika. Real homie shit. Gon is the main protagonist who's there to back up his buddy Kurapika. He fights for his friends. He's not the Tanjiro Kamado sort of character who's like, oh, I'm just a cool little guy. I just want to do the right things with the humanity and everyone, even the ones that killed my family. I fuck with that attitude a lot. But that ain't Gon. He's no saint. He's a good kid, but he's no saint. He likes to make good impressions, has a knack for missing social cues in a way that leads him to be unusually kind without reserve. But he's got his limits. Things are rarely personal for Gon. He just wants to have a good time fishing, as it were. When a friend of his is hurt, Gon will step up, but it still isn't personal for him. Things go down in York New City, people get hurt, some of the Phantom Troop get hurt or die by the hands of Kurapika, and Kurapika's still swimming in the resurfaced trauma. Deeply disturbed. I mentioned all this stuff about York New City, which is before the Chimera Ant arc, because this, for me, is one of the first big times that Gon starts to crack. Gon's like tungsten, real strong metal that can withstand a lot of force, but can't bend easily. He'll break before he bends to depth. And this moment sticks with him. The rage, the same sickness in the stomach that'll come back. That's his first straw, when he saw someone, Nobunaga, mourn his friend Uvogin, both Phantom Troop members who did horrible, horrible things to one of his friends without that same level of remorse. How could Nobunaga be able to, as any human should, mourn over his dead friend, but had no sympathy for others that Nobunaga and Uvogin hurt? How could Nobunaga do the things he did in York New City without care or dilemma? His values are that much different from mine? Why doesn't he see? Why is he not being convinced? Remember that kind of flow I described earlier? That's me. As weird of a moment in an anime as it was, in a situation that on the surface I can't relate to at all, it struck a chord. I haven't butt heads with a group of trained killers in Manhattan, and that probably won't happen in the future. But the dynamic in the core of that exchange reminded me of me, and I wasn't too stoked about it. That stubbornness that keeps you from going, okay, well, that sucks, but that's just how some folk are. Have you ever held an opinion or judgment and hearing someone else express it made you wince? Like, is that how it sound to other people? Oh, this is a little bit too close to home, and it seems a little bit unhealthy. Oh, jeez, this discomfort is giving me pause. The disturbing thing for Gon wasn't what he was reacting to. Killing innocent people as collateral, which the Phantom Troop have done a lot, is generally agreed to be not so good. Now, the disturbing thing was how he coped with Nobunaga's counter afterwards. What I'm saying is, he couldn't cope. To Nobunaga, Uvalde was a close friend. Of course he would mourn his stubborn friend, as often as they butted heads. Nobunaga wasn't close to those he killed, so there is nothing to mope about. If I hear someone tell me this during an arm wrestling contest, say, I'm probably gonna make that T-shaped time gesture with the timeout with my hands to go, oh, hold on, wait, what? Which I can't because I'm in an arm wrestling contest with a samurai, and then blam goes the back of my hand against the table. I'm gonna be shocked, but I can't deny the existence of what's literally in front of me. That's just how he is. Gon, however, oh baby Gon. Gon, no man is an island freak. Believes that if you can mourn a friend, you can mourn a stranger just as easily and equally. Really amazing quality, but it's not commonly practiced. You're not a bad person if your heart doesn't bleed for literally everyone, after all. You got yourself, your friends, your family, your community to worry about. Maybe if you're not a bleed heart, you could have an easier time rationalizing in groups and out groups, minimizing concerns about those you've hurt. But you could still use regret and shame to learn from mistakes and other lessons to keep your path straight. To do right by others that are total strangers. There's so much more that goes into the human experience that determines good and bad, and Gon may just not have been exposed to in his peaceful upbringing on his whale shaped island. Even more, you're not a front to back good person if you do practice that bleeding heart belief. What does it say of someone who has difficulty understanding that others' beliefs, thoughts, and reflections being different doesn't forsake their humanity, whether we like it or not, whether we like them or not? Maybe our beliefs are better, but we will practice poor understanding of others and ourselves by still failing to recognize that across the table is a distinct person with their own drive. I think we gain a better understanding of ourselves when we can do this, also. If Gon is going to become a hunter, a licensed worker of the world bumping into all sorts of peoples and problems, he's gonna bump into people like Nobunaga a lot more. And just, any other person with any priorities. Some more fair than others. He's gonna bump into people that don't gel with him. It's an experience he can't avoid. If you disagree with someone so hard that your blood boils and you commit to opposing it, you still gotta stay tethered to reality. Observe the world around you're experiencing and not lose yourself. Gon starts to buckle from his grief and reckoning with others. He is dangerously close to finding his answer to the question that he asked Nobunaga, who grieves his unrepentant kill of a friend. How could you not care? So close to finding the answer in a way that would be deeply uncomfortable to him. Ironically, he will no longer interact with the world around him. He will stay lost in his mind. He will become numb. Finally, I get to the Chimera Ant arc, named for the species that dominates this arc. The arc marks a different tone, with the lovable, merchandisable characters wandering a little bit too close to this Chimera Ant queen and spending their last moments in fear and terror. Why are they so afraid? Wouldn't you be afraid if a big ant creature is trying to eat you and offload your genetics, personality, and consciousness into her offspring? It's a little bit fucked, ain't it? This phagogenesis process. The time you got over a family member's death or became a theater kid, now you're a brooding lizard theater kid after being digested. Anyway, Gone and Gang. Gong? Gang? Nah. Are in the Ant's Palace. A fight here, an avoiding there. It's really well paced action in space. There's a bunch of reasons the gang is there. Gon's main motivation is to return the friend's consciousness back to his body. This guy Kite, he's a cool guy. Look at his scythe. Isn't it cool? It is cool. That's the answer. At this point, Gun's already starting to feel his inner strength start to crack. Imagine he's going room to room, trying to find a way to find a person who hollowed out Kite. Make that person turn Kite back. Bring his friend back. It's only fair. They must. It's the only acceptable closure. In one of those rooms, Gon finds a person, Pito, who puppetized Kite, who's using their Nen abilities to save some random girl's life. Doesn't matter that the girl Krogi is someone important to the big arc boss and King Nerum. Doesn't matter that this Nerum promised to take Gon's senior allies to fight in a faraway location to not disturb Bito's treatment of Krogi. Doesn't matter that Krogi is an innocent person harmed in an assault on the castle. No. Even if Gon knew any of that, he wouldn't have cared. His wrath is righteous. He will have his friend back, or he will have revenge. Why can you heal this girl but not heal my friend? This girl is important to your king? Okay, so you help those who matter to you, but you won't fix your mistakes to me. Why didn't you think about how kind mattered to me before killing him? Alright, I'll kill this girl. Serves you right. What matters is I quell this fury and get my revenge. I think Gon was starting to go through tragedy and stress the way Nobunaga had. Sounds familiar, yeah? He was starting to find the answer to the question he asked the Phantom Trope. He was starting to dig down into the bottomless malice of the human heart. That whole spectrum of the human experience was on display. Kill those who deprive me of my companion. Anything standing in the way? Kill him too. So, yeah. Gon threatens Pidua to fix Kite. All you better do it or I'm gonna beat you up, Mr. or Miss. They never say which, if either. Pidua, in an intense show of humility to show that they have no tricks up their sleeve, smashes their arm to gain some trust from Gon. Also, Gon doesn't up and kill Kurogi. Pidua could take Gon alone, no problem in a one-on-one fight. Hell, so could Poof, is one of Pito's co-workers of sorts, is a bodyguard to the king. Their concern, for different reasons, for keeping Kurogi safe is that strong, so intense in the face of Gon's range that they play the situation as safely as possible. All the while, Gon is teetering on risking his life for revenge. Gon's inconsistency at that point takes Killua by surprise, to say the least. It's like, hey, yo, you good? Gon had never acted that way before, and it was concerning to Killua. Gon was always this interesting, bright star to always look towards. Now that Star is confused, hurt, lost, looking for context answers, a promise for Kite, and is just about to rip at his seams. It's such an intense inconsistency of his character that chalks with humanity's consistent inconsistencies. Yes, say that 3 times fast. What I mean is that we aren't so consistent and in control of ourselves as much or as often as we would like to be. We can look back and give a good 3 a.m. hell, even a thrill of a 3 p.m. scare recalling what we've done and said to others and ourselves in extreme situations. I'm a feel of a guy, and that stuff can really get to me. If we say something bad to someone or someone says something bad to us, are we bad? Maybe we're just the worst. Bonus points if you only let the bad times define you and not your good times, let alone the times where you were just in a moment, the neutral times. So maybe we're human and we aren't just those bad moments and failings. In Gon's case, it's up to the him of afterwards to reflect and move on. The Gon in the present is just too furious and caught up in himself for that right now. That fury will gladly take the slightest excuse to inflict wounds to soothe himself. Those wraths are just too difficult to let go in a moment, even in negative ones. I honestly think it'd be Gon's way of feeling like the situation is still within his control. Whether or not Kite could be turned back, it's not up to Gon, and he's hoping his rage will be enough to make change to that objective reality. When you let go of that particular wrath, you gotta take the first step that you haven't taken with all the time spent otherwise. Of course, a situation like this is handled better by different sorts of people. Those I can separate the self from the situation like a Killua would not lose the self to the extent that Gon has. We've seen Killua kill a man in a tournament and he was able to mentally bounce back. He got himself out of a tricky situation by doing something drastic, killing. But that situation is over. He's starting to become his own person. He did things he didn't want to, nor was he proud of, but he is not his actions. At the same time, he's still got specific buttons that can be pressed. I contrast that again with Gon. A top to bottom feeler that doesn't bend so much as he does snap. I feel like his heart goes, if I did this, if I said that, if this was said or done unto me, then I guess that's what I am now? Shit. New trauma, new me. I think Gon is flirting with the parts of the human experience that he once disregarded as impossible to any human being, let alone awful or wrong. It's still a human possibility. It wasn't just the human characters getting these moments, these emotional experiences seen across the Chimera ants themselves. Pito's healing Kurogi for the sake of their king doesn't get what's so great about Kurogi, but they understand that the king holds Kurogi dear, and shit, that's enough. Contrast that ability to empathize with Poof, that fellow bodyguard of the king from earlier. Poof projects so strongly his idea of what a king, his king, should believe and act that he loses his shit realizing that King Nerum is thinking and acting independently of what Poof wishes Nerum would be. What does Poof wish Nerum to be? A bad king that don't need no human and subjugates and conquers crazy style. And hey, if the king won't kill Kurogi, the king must come to his senses. I know what's best for the king. I will change his environment to be what I like, which is conveniently what I think is best for the king. It's really selfless of Poof. Really couldn't have asked for a better wingman. Poof's attitude is as intense as it is unchanging across arc, which is pretty funny compared to the last bodyguard, Mensu Yuppie. By the way, thank fuck this guy's a nickname. We're calling him Yuppie from now on, or Centaur Boy. Would a Chimera Ant by any other name be just as cool though? Or just as capable of development? Hell, even Peter developed as a person throughout. But Yuppie. Right. His position was unique. Killing wasn't necessary and therefore would not be done unless they were a threat to those he cares about, specifically Nero. Bonus points of the person he's fighting either impresses him or keeps their word during a fight. To him, it's easy to talk and talk and talk when you're not trading blows with however many tons of muscle Yuppie was. I mean, Jesus, what were they feeding him? Cornbread? They feeding him humans. But if his opponent keeps their word to him during a fight with him, he fucks with that immensely. He super fucks with that. Yuppie in particular keeps his word to his opponent, Knuckle. I'm so sorry for all these names. Hey, you take your nerfing ability off of me, I'll back up entirely. Pretty hard spot for Knuckle. On one hand, his combat nerfing ability is the one thing keeping him in this war of attrition, but it is a war that Knuckle is slowly but surely losing. Could he clutch something? I mean, I guess. I don't know, maybe. Fuck it. Knuckle goes into his fight, a man on a mission of species extermination, and ends his conflict putting his life on a bro just trust me promise. So, Knuckle relents, removes the nerf from Yuppie, all because Yuppie Pinky promised Knuckle that he wouldn't kill Knuckles' homies if the nerf ability is removed. Knuckles' boys yells, rightfully so, dude, this is not worth it! Which on a grand scheme, in a point in time, his allies were right, I think. His old nerf ability is basically slowly but surely draining the opponent's auras. I don't mean like the I mean like the in-universe energy system, not the hype or anyways. Draining an opponent's aura until they are totally sapped of energy to fight or defend themselves with. Knuckles was real close at this point. A few allies for taking out one of the three big head honchos. Knuckles is all about strength, not just in muscles, but in compassion. His compassion muscles are insanely massive. When there's people he can protect, he'll do it. He's got that warrior heart that respects an opponent's word. Hell, he ain't just protective about his allies. Dude spends his free time taking care of dogs and just that's that in particular. That's a good dog. But that on the head, right there. Anyway, this is one of those cases where not all allies would have taken Centaur Boy at his word, but Knuckle in particular took a chance on Centaur Boy, sharing that spirit of respect. And when Centaur Boy got what he asked for, he respects Knuckle and he walks off. He doesn't finish the fight, as was the agreement. He's just so overwhelmed by the first time in his short life. These Chimera ants grow really fast. Of the feeling of eye to eye respect, Yuppie respects the king, of course. But that's like, the king is, it's different, the pecking order and the my liege, you're so cool and all. It's a power dynamic. And at this point, though, Yuppie is just taking it all in. The present. And he's content with the determination and trustworthiness that was exchanged in this fight. I just think about how powerful that must be for such an intense feeling in a person's young life. Like, I'm not thrilled when a kid cries over literal spilled milk, but at the same time, that's gotta be the worst thing that's ever happened to that kid's life so far. So far, at least. Wait until heartbreaks and albums that he was looking towards getting released. It ends up being disappointing. Cool. Those be the days. So, what do you do with the most intense feelings experienced so far? Honestly, now I'm just trying to sit with them, not intellectualize them too much. A little bit, but be in the present and appreciate the signals that the body is asking me to just marinate with the feelings, what it means to me. I want to learn from an event, to feel it, and not let it consume me or define me, to afford it the opportunity to teach me something new. I think UP did an excellent job in that. Growth isn't rock solid though, unfortunately. Frequently in fiction, a character will be depicted as having an arc, and then they learned I was doing or thinking this thing not so nice, and then they carry those lessons strongly and forevermore. Sometimes we forget our lessons. Sometimes those lessons are tested and under pressure. Old habits resurface. Even new maladaptive thoughts manifest. Just like how Gon is capable of becoming a cold person concerned with only himself and his herd, Yuppie leaves the fight to tend to his king who just barely survived the fight against an invading human with this big Buddha ability with a billion hands and a laser beam. Turns the background into a galaxy. Last thing he sees, galaxy laser beam. Second last thing you see is stars. Such a good fight. So what's the state the king is in after such a fight? Charred, limbless, barely alive. That sight brings Yuppie to such a rich rage that he swears death against the humans. The same humans he owed his early growth to. From Gon to Yuppie, we're all capable of stances, moralities, the potential to grow and regress throughout life. We're not indestructible, so it behooves us to not permanently capitulate into ourselves when we do fall short. Can I go back to Pitou and Gon? Oh, hold on, this is my video. Of course I can. Pitou expressed genuine empathy for Gon, who they deprived a friend from. They knew they couldn't bring their friend back, and they weren't doing a little cheeky, ooh, I was only pretending to feel bad, ha ha, bit. Pitou in that moment could only recognize that Gon lost someone important to him. Meanwhile, Pitou is healing Kumogi, who, so that, Meruem doesn't lose her at least. Pitou understands that Komugi is important to Meruem, and that's enough, even if Komugi isn't important to Meruem per se. I could have put this earlier, tried to squeeze it in after writing all this, but I just remember this difficult display of empathy towards hostiles and just really wanted to bring it up before moving on to Meruem and what he took away from his short life, beginning with the grandest preconceived notions and plans to ending with appreciating the present. At the end of the arc, Meruem temporarily recovered through blood anime life-giving magic. It's just like, whatever, man. He regenerated his arms and legs and all, but he knows he's a dead man walking somehow. Dead ant. Walk. Anyway, the Meruem who in episode 134 tells one of his once subordinates, because turns out the humans, they won, more or less, sort of, kind of. He tells one of his once subordinates to go live a human life. It's not the same Meruem that threatened Komugi a billion times in their first few exchanges, more than a billion, like a zillion times. He's trying to find evidence that she was putting him on a pecking order, either above or below her. Meruem managed to live a human life in a short time. He had his beliefs. Some of those beliefs were challenged. Some of those beliefs changed. Some unchanged. He exercised the ability to feel an emotion come up, welcome it as an opportunity to reflect on his thoughts. Where did they come from? Cotton Eye Joe. What did it say of his inner beliefs? Where did I get this idea that Kobuki would ask for my death if I lose this specific backgammon chess sort of game? Why did I take this gesture as a slight when this person meant no harm? I told myself I killed Komugi when I win, so why does the outcome matter less and more just the moments of playing together with this person? The beautiful thing was this immensely ruthless character recognizing it was his interpretation of events that were driving his actions. However right, wrong, or whatever those interpretations were for him to figure out. He developed his ability to be able to engage with the objective world as it is, and that allowed him opportunities of change, moments of worth. He drops a banger of a line and says, "If only I was like this from the start. No, I'm only the way I am because the pieces fell into play." The dude loves shogi, I think, so much that his reflections are speaking in pieces through the game itself. He can't help but wonder how things could have gone differently had he known then what he knows now. But he also clearly communicates with himself the power of nurture and growth. He dwelled on that what ifs and if I had just for a second, two or three. But he moves on to be in the moment to say, all right, what now? Obviously, some species in fiction are just straight up stands in for evil for the character's own purposes, but I believe that the Chimera ants act as a reflection of reality, of a humanity, even. There's only so far we could get by ourselves. In the emotional and the psychological sense, we'll have a really hard time figuring out much about ourselves without memories and interactions with others to influence us. Nature and nurture. Merrim was obviously a ruthless guy in the beginning, but there was a slight aspect to his nature where he was willing to explore his cognitive dissonances. The nurture of Komuki's friendship helped, but if Merrim was like poof, the story could have been over right then, maybe. Good changes, bad changes, they're all a part of the journey. Maybe we'll experience some good things and use that to tell ourselves we're a good person. Maybe we'll experience a few bad things and convince ourselves we're just the worst, the worst. Maybe how we define ourselves will be based on other people. Maybe it'll be based from within. This sentence is going on and on and on. I've done 5 takes of the sentence, and I can't help but feel like that represents our potential. It can go any which way. What way will Wolfman, that guy Merrim was talking to just now, live? Will he become a peaceful guy, monk-like, materialistic, belligerent, vindictive, self-aware? The choices are all up to him. Wolfman told Merrim, "Yeah, I'm gonna follow someone else." And beautifully, Merrim didn't mind. It's not important to him. Yeah, objectively, it's a betrayal of alignment in the strictest sense, but Merrim didn't mind those things so much by the end. He had different priorities, caring for those he came to hold dear. If he spent his time minding those who did not care for Merrim, like Wolfman, that would be time that Merrim didn't spend with Komogi. Merrim became someone that did not hold on to one-way dynamics. He didn't stay trapped in the past or grieved by the future. But he did also refer to the two, not staying trapped in either of those houses of past and the future, rather being able to enter and leave them appropriately. He looked towards Komugi waking up to play another game with him and reflected about what led up to him becoming him. He found intense happiness in close personal relationships that were initially just a means for him to demonstrate an innate superiority. What was initially a relationship with only purpose to prove that he was better than anyone at anything became internally based, quite based, unabashed, without excuses or explanations. He just wanted to be around Komugi. Honestly, sometimes I have trouble explaining my unexplained desires or feeling like I need a reason to hang out or I need a reason to not hang out with this person. So this really, really, really stuck with me. His final objective wasn't to win. It was to play, to experience the day, going from wanting to conquer the world to just wanting to hear his name be spoken by someone he cared about. In its last moments, it was just so human. That's the best way I could describe it. I mentioned earlier that I started watching this arc at a specific time where I noticed a change in perspective of myself. It's not a perfect change. It's not a complete annihilation. Before and after, bam, bada bing, wow, magic, intensely all different person. But still, same thing happened with the writing of this script. You see moments like being in a moment, understanding a thing intellectually, not understanding the thing intellectually, but having the empathy to go, shit. Even thinking, I don't know how I feel. I don't feel like I need to understand everything. And being fine with it. Last one's a more difficult to say the least, but yeah, hey, baby steps. I don't know if this show caused any of those growths for me. Maybe some for some, maybe none. Who knows? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? We maybe future knows that. Importantly, it at least gave me checkpoints in memory where I can look back and know that one way or another I have changed. I am changing. I am living, just like God, just like Meram. Whether art evokes growth directly or reminds you of your separate growth, I think it's all valid. It's all beautiful. Whatever gets you thinking, reflecting, doing, that's wonderful. If things are looking up and then some real missteps are made, like oof, I did that, yeesh, it's still your story. It's still not over. You've got so many arcs ahead of you.